What is going on, everybody? Welcome here to the CB1 show. It is once again me, Braden, doing the show here by myself. Unfortunately, Chris might be week to week as he is still dealing with a lingering illness. So hopefully Chris is at 100% within the next few weeks and we can finally get this show rolling with the two of us and we can get different opinions here in these videos. But as it stands now, it is week 2 of the NFL season, and again, it's still a little too early to tell what some of these teams are, but we do have a better feel now for what to expect in the near future with some of these teams, as some have stacked 2 wins in a row, others the complete opposite with 2 straight losses to begin the season. So I'm going to once again go over my key takeaways from the NFL Week 2 games. So starting off with Thursday Night Football, the Packers are legit. And it hurts me to say that as a Minnesota Vikings fan, but the Packers are good. And they could legitimately finish this regular season with the 1 seed, with being the representative of the NFC in the Super Bowl. I don't think it's crazy to say those things. So Green Bay, that's a team that we have to continue to look out for. Jordan Love looks great this year. I think if their O-line gets healthy, they get even better. And this defense, right? I mean, Micah Parsons is making a world of a difference, because last year their pass rush was a key reason why they weren't as efficient as they were in years past. And you bring in a guy like that, of course it's going to improve the defense. And the big question was, is the secondary going to step up? And they certainly have done so. McKinney is still a fantastic safety. Evan Williams, I think, is creating a name for himself as well. And guys like Keyshawn Nixon are stepping up with their opportunity. Of course, Nixon has been a starter for the last couple of years now, but that was a name that was brought up that as someone who really needed to step up in a very depleted secondary in terms of talent. On the flip side, for the Commanders, I didn't have the Commanders as a playoff team this year, and I felt like their roster was not going to be able to compete with the higher end teams. The Packers I did have as a playoff team, and so it kind of aligned with my take at the beginning of the year. But again, it's week 2. That is still a good team led by a good head coach, in my opinion, and a good quarterback. And so you can never rule them out. Like, I didn't have Washington missing the playoffs by a landslide. It was just they have a tough schedule, and there are other more talented teams in the NFC. So again, they proved me right here in week 2, but it's a long season and there aren't many teams that I would hit the panic button on, but there are a handful, and we'll get to those in a bit. Let's talk about Russell Wilson's resurgence. When the season is all said and done, he might have 2 throws on the top 10 list of throws from this season from this week 2 game against the Cowboys. That deep ball to Wan'Dale Robinson and then later to Malik Nabers may have been some of the prettiest passes we have seen in recent NFL history. Russell Wilson, he still got it, and he got a lot of crap for his time in Denver. But again, Nathaniel Hackett, what's the excuse for Sean Payton? I can't really make one. I will say he was better under Sean Payton in Denver. But now you give him a guy like Brian Daboll, right, who is considered to be an offensive mastermind because of his time in Buffalo. And while both of those scenarios for both Wilson and Daboll are kind of put in the past already, you can see what those 2 guys are capable of doing when everything is clicking. And I think you have an elite receiver in Malik Nabers, who is arguably top 5 in the league. Wan'Dale Robinson is coming around as a prominent wide receiver too in this offense. Like, he is picking up where he left off from last year, and it's promising because a week ago we were talking about this team potentially starting Jackson Dart. Now, not me. I don't believe he should be starting anytime soon, but that was discussions from some people in the NFL public. So again, Russell Wilson proving why he is still worthy of being a starter 13 years after being selected in the 2012 draft. They're 0-2 though. And again, because they got good quarterback play, because they were moving the ball offensively, and to me it was a shock that defense gave up 40 points. I still think that this team is going to be competitive on a game-to-game basis. Do I think they're a playoff team? No. And I didn't think so before the year started. But they're showing signs of improvement. They just need to play a full collective game, a complementary game, and maybe we can take the Giants more seriously. But until they start winning games, we can't do that, even with a generational performance from Russell Wilson. Now, the Steelers and the Jets, these teams might just suck. Okay, they had arguably one of the best games of the season so far, and we were like, wow, both of these offenses are moving at rates that we didn't expect them to, and both of them just come out flat this week. Granted, Seattle, I think we're still trying to figure out what they are, but they have a good defense, and the Bills have a good defense. They have a good team. And so, was it just the Jets and the Steelers kind of being in that same category, and them kind of just abusing each other's weakened defenses and new offense with their new quarterbacks, possibly. But these are the teams that you need to beat come January, and both of these teams fell flat. Steelers against the Seahawks and Jets against the Bills. So again, I think these are two teams where you need more time to really see what this team is made of and capable of this season. I think it's promising that both put on good performances in week one, but these ones kind of take you back a little bit and bring you back to reality in a sense of where these teams really are this year. The Dolphins and the Panthers. These are two teams that I have hit the panic button on after week one, and I'm hitting it even harder after week two, because the Dolphins had an opportunity to win this game, blew it, no shocker there. And the Panthers, time after time again, the Cardinals were just letting the Panthers back into the game, whether it was through penalties, the numerous penalties that they had on crucial downs, and the onside kick. They just couldn't capitalize on it. And I don't know. I don't view the Cardinals as a legit contending team, and the Panthers are doing that. I don't believe in the Dolphins or the Panthers, and could we see both of these front offices and staffs be cleared out mid-season by the end of the year? It's quite possible, but that seat is getting hot for both Mike Macdonald and Dave Canales. That's all I have to say to that. Just two very winnable games, in my opinion. In the Dolphins against New England, New England didn't look good against Las Vegas, and then, Arizona beat New Orleans, and I don't know. I just think Arizona is what we think they are already. I don't know. It's tough going. It's tough going if you are a Dolphins or a Panthers fan in the big 2025. Another team that I wanted to highlight was the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 2-0, but without Joe Burrow for an extended amount of time. Not the season, but an extended amount of time. And they're going to have to rock with Jake Browning, who is the ultimate gunslinging backup in the league right now, throwing 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and still finding a way to win the game for the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is a team that I wouldn't rule out, because while the defense is still giving up a fair share of chunk plays, they're also coming up with some pretty big turnovers in their own right and some pretty big stops in general. So I think that this team is capable of moving the ball with Jake Browning, which is really the important thing. If you can sustain drives and get any type of points on the board with your backup quarterback, that's a plus. And I think Jake Browning is one of the higher tiered backup quarterbacks in the league. I would say he's top 35 amongst all quarterbacks in the league. So this is a team that I still think can win a handful of games with Jake Browning and hopefully keep their playoff hopes alive, because of course 2-0 is exactly the way you want to start your season, but you also don't want to lose your quarterback in the process, and unfortunately that's what's happened for Cincinnati. But I like Jake Browning, and he's proven in the past that he can win some pretty big games on some pretty big stages. So like I said before, would not count out this Cincinnati team. Now, are the Lions good, or are the Bears just bad? And I think it's a combination of both. Yes, there may be a lack of creativity for, say, when you compare the new offense under Morton compared to Johnson. But the Lions, like I mentioned in last week's Week 1 recap, this team is way too talented to not put up some points here and there and be a good football team on both sides of the football. So, again, I think this week was a good example of it where they are the more talented team, and regardless of who's on the coaching staff, they're just going to outplay a worse team than them. And the Bears, like, this is overly concerning because, I mean, they gave up 52 points, right? And after losing to the Vikings, after how the Vikings looked on Sunday Night Football, it's like, man, how bad are the Bears, right? I think it's a combination of both, and I think at least for the Lions, let's give it a little more time, because I think all of us would agree that they are a good team. It's just a matter of how good are they and how far can they make it this season. I still have my doubts because I do think that there are better coaching staffs out there with, equally, if not more talented teams in the NFC. So a few more weeks against more opponents, not like the Bears, and I think we'll get a good feel for who the Lions are. But I wouldn't be worried if I'm a Lions fan. I would continue to have as much excitement as I did heading into the season. If you guys did have any, you should, because the team's good. The Lions are a good team. Bears, I'm not saying the season's over, because sometimes it takes time for teams to gel in new systems, but we're getting close to having that conversation. A team that I'm not worried about, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 0-2, but they played two really good teams in the LA Chargers, who seem to always give them fits, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who were the Super Bowl champions last year. Now, while the Philadelphia Eagles didn't look inspiring in their own right offensively, they're still a good team. Again, it's one of those situations where Kellen Moore is gone, and because the team is talented, just like the Detroit Lions, they're going to look good. And so, for the Chiefs, it's going to be a tough schedule, but as I mentioned before, and I'm going to stick with it, I believe in this coaching staff. I don't feel like you can ever count out Patrick Mahomes. Now, have they kind of dug themselves in a hole, especially with the way that LA, the Chargers, have played early on in the season? Absolutely. I mean, they're 2 games behind right now, and they only have one more head-to-head matchup against the Chargers in the regular season. I'm not saying that they can't win the division, but it's going to be a lot more difficult, and their schedule doesn't get any easier with a first-place schedule in place. Wow. Very clunky sentence there. But my point is that the Chiefs, you put them against most other coaching staffs, you're going to take Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. You're going to take Patrick Mahomes over majority of the quarterbacks, and I understand it's a team game, but this is one of the more well-rounded teams, and they're just suffering from injury right now. I think when you get guys like Worthy and Rashee Rice back, hopefully that can open up things for the run game that's really struggling right now. There's no answer, whether it's Pacheco, whether it's Hunt. One of the stats that's been circulating these last few days is Patrick Mahomes is the leading rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, that's not good, but I also think that is a result of a lack of a pass game. So, I don't think I'm ready to hit the panic button on Kansas City just yet, despite being 0-2 to begin the season. Another team that is potentially hitting the panic button, but I think it still might be too soon, is the Minnesota Vikings. And I can say that as a Vikings fan, and you guys can take that as you want. I didn't have the Vikings as a playoff team to begin this year, and mainly because I anticipated these bumps and bruises along the way for J.J. McCarthy. I expressed my excitement for him and what he did on Monday Night Football against the Bears, but I also realized that there were 3 bad quarters and one really extraordinary quarter of football put together by this offensive unit. And this past week they came out, and I understand second string left tackle is terrible in Justin School, and he goes out with a concussion. So you have your third string left tackle out there. Ryan Kelly gets a concussion, and then Michael Juergens has to fill in. He doesn't look good. You have 2 backup offensive linemen that just don't look great, and McCarthy's getting killed in the backfield, which ultimately ends up to his high ankle sprain that's going to sideline him for 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I don't think that this is a cover-up to bench McCarthy, because they believe in him, right? I mean, if passing up on Sam Darnold and Aaron Rodgers doesn't tell you everything you need to know about how the Vikings feel about J.J. McCarthy, they want him out there. They need him to get these reps if he's going to be the franchise quarterback that he's going to be. So I think the idea that he's getting benched because of performance, I think is not a good take. And I do think he's injured. I mean, we saw him limping around the field on Sunday Night Football. So I don't think this is a, hey, we're sheltering you because, you didn't play so well and we don't think you're ready anymore. If they felt like that, they would have signed Darnold or Rodgers this offseason. So I'm not buying that. How does Carson Wentz look? That's another question for my other YouTube channel. But I don't really care enough to talk about it that much. The only topic that I can really formulate from that is, if Carson Wentz looks good, is there a QB controversy? That's the one thing that I'd be worried about the most. Because if Carson Wentz goes out there and absolutely balls out, there are going to be fans calling for him to remain as a starting quarterback. Whereas if he doesn't play well and the Vikings are losing, then that's another situation where is the season over and, do questions of Kevin O'Connell arise? There's just a lot of question marks left up in the air with the Minnesota Vikings. But I'm going to reiterate this time and again, and it will probably happen throughout the duration of the 2025-2026 NFL season. J.J. McCarthy needs more time. I am a firm believer that he can be a high-level franchise quarterback, but he needs the reps and he needs the time. Games like this are expected. That's why I don't think, as good as this roster is, I don't think that this is a playoff team. That's all I'm going to say to that. The Texans. Okay, I should have just, as I'm talking through this, and I know I'm trying to go in order of how the games went, but it probably would have been better if I had just organized and categorized these teams. The Texans are another team that is 0-2 that I'm not worried about. Sure, just like the Chiefs, you've kind of dug yourself in a hole with Indianapolis going 2-0, which I'm going to get to that in a bit because I just realized I totally disregarded that game. Look, the Texans, I had them as a 9-8 team, just one game above 500 because of how bad that offensive line is. And there are just limitations to the offense when you don't have a good front. So I'm not worried about them because, they lost the game by 1 to a Buccaneers team that has been really clutch. You can tell that this is a team that is synchronized, that they've been playing together for a while. And, of course, having Egbuka come in as a day one starter and look as natural at the position as any other wide receiver in the league, that's going to help. Bucky Irving looks fantastic as well. I think it's getting to the point where he might be underrated because he's a good runner, he has great vision, he has the ability to make guys miss out in the open field, and is a good receiving back as well. He does it all. But spinning back to the Texans, yes, you're kind of in a hole now, but you will play the Colts twice this season, and you have a good quarterback and an outstanding defense. And you lost to two good teams in the Buccaneers and Rams, who I both have making the playoffs this year. So I wouldn't be worried if I'm the Texans. But if you start 0-3, for all of these teams, for a matter of fact, who are 0-2, once you hit 0-3, it's an uphill climb from there. And, more times than not, those teams don't end up making the playoffs. So, again, another week is necessary to create a more definitive opinion on these teams as the season goes on. Finally, the Chargers look legit. This is a damn good team. And I'm going to put this out here now while it's week 2 of the season. I think if this team continues to have the success that they are having now, right, and you beat the Chiefs and you manhandle the Raiders, even if the score doesn't say that, Jesse Minter will be he will be one of the top head coach candidates in next year's coaching cycle. He will be. This defense is outstanding, and he's putting guys in the right place at the right time. They're generating pressure. They're getting in the backfield. They're stuffing up the run game. Guys are not able to get much yards after the catch. We saw yesterday that Geno hadn't completed a pass over 10 air yards. Jesse Minter is a damn good defensive coordinator, and it was a really smart decision on Harbaugh's part to bring him along with this LA Chargers staff, as Jesse Minter was the defensive coordinator for Michigan when they won the national championship. He was dialing up at the college level, and he's continuing to dial it up here in the NFL. I'm telling you right now, Jesse Minter will be a head coach for a team in 2026. In regards to this whole team, this Chargers team looks legit. And I think one of the things that I love the most about this is that due to circumstance and a lack of a run game, because they're not getting much production out of Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris as a duo, you have to put the ball in the hands of Justin Herbert. And Herbert's balling out. And I felt like, Herbert was a guy who was always limited in a sense, and I just felt like he needed to throw the ball more. And I think as your quarterback gets to throw the ball more and get more into a rhythm, like that's exactly the quarterback that Justin Herbert is. Like he has a great arm that can make any throw in the league. And he's proving that. And he's coming up clutch and he's making great decisions. And I think that may have been a point of emphasis in terms of like decision making and how to manage a drive and how to sustain drives for that matter, I think is a better word. Sustaining drives is so important, and I think they've done a better job of that over the course of these last 2 weeks. And if he can continue to play as an efficient quarterback, right, not just out there making the big throws with his rocket arm, but he's doing it with his legs too. And I know some of you guys might be saying, Justin Herbert's been doing this. Yes, I understand. Like Justin Herbert is a talented quarterback, but a lot of what he has improved this season is the things that you can't find on a stat sheet. It's not his completion percentage per se, or his passing yards, but it's just I feel like he has a better feel for the game now. Like it just takes guys a little bit longer sometimes, and I feel like he's getting into a rhythm, which I think is the most important thing. Because even last year, this team was heavily reliant on the run, and I didn't think that Justin Herbert got as many opportunities as he should. But like every other quarterback in the league, right, because the quarterback ultimately dictates wins and losses more than anybody else. The wins and loss stat is not a full indicator and a full representation of how good or bad a quarterback is, but it does mean something, because if the ball is in your hands, not just at the end of the game, but throughout the game, which it is, you have to go out there and make plays. No one has a bigger impact on the game than the quarterback. So if the Chargers continue to win and put together, hey, let's say a 12 or 13 win season, and then they go on and win some playoff games, I'm going to really earn the respect of Justin Herbert, because, again, he was drafted in 2020. 6 years later, we're still waiting for him to get his first playoff win. So I love what's happening early on in the season here in September. But we're going to wait till January comes around to see what Justin Herbert is really made of, and if he's a quarterback capable of winning the big games and, of course, the Super Bowl. Because I think the way that this team is playing, Super Bowl contender, it's not crazy to say that. Like, they legitimately have looked like one of the best teams in the NFL through 2 weeks. I'm not saying they are, but they have looked like it. And that's promising if you're a Chargers fan. Now, before I forget again, Indianapolis, I'm gonna be low-key about this because they're 2-0, and Daniel Jones, this offense as a whole, but Daniel Jones, he's looked good in this system. Shane Steichen, let's not forget, this is a good offensive coordinator that has had just mediocre quarterbacks for the last 2 years, right? With Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, I would say Daniel Jones has been in that same category through the course of his career, but he seems to be a much better fit and is operating the offense much better than those two guys ever did, even if it's just 2 weeks. Like, Colts quarterbacks under Shane Steichen, these might be the two best performances that we've seen. So to see them do that against the Denver defense too, I thought was really promising, because last week I was like, it's Miami. Like, I never believed in Miami, but Denver was like, okay, this is a good team, and they got it done. All right, even if they didn't win this game, right, and that leverage call never happened, and it did end up going down as a missed field goal, and they're 1-1. I still have a ton of respect for the Colts, because they look like a good team and a team that understands what they're doing. So I might have to backtrack on that Chris Ballard take that I had earlier in the season if this continues. I will eat my words. I will admit that I'm wrong, but I'm not completely sold with Daniel Jones yet, because we know what he has been in the first few years. Well, not few, in his NFL career. And that still scares me because it's almost like the thought that's happening in my head is, when are the wheels just going to fall off and poop's just going to hit the fan? I didn't want to swear. I still have my doubts. Just because of the quarterback. But I'm going to give him his flowers because he is playing really well. And you could argue top 5 quarterback of 2025-2026 so far. Daniel Jones for MVP? Just throwing that out there. It's crazy that we're even saying those words in combination. But if the season ended today, I think he definitely gets some votes. So let me know if you guys have any other thoughts in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with what I said? Do you guys disagree? Chris and I are always open to have conversation in the comment section. We're always interested to hear what you guys think. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and we will see you guys again in week 3. Peace.